Hi, my name is Stefan Grossman, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about various folk blues and how they can be arranged for the guitar. Now, what's very important on this lesson is that I'm going to obviously show you my arrangements of various tunes, but you notice that we have some audio tracks. There's a whole section on your DVD menus that says audio tracks, and it's really important that you listen to these tunes before I teach you those tunes. So for instance, the first tune is going to be Corrina Corrina, and we have two different recordings of Corrina Corrina from the 1920s and 1930s, of which, be aware there's going to be a little bit of scratch on these old 78s, but the music is pure and fantastic. So you listen to those first, and then you get into the arrangements that we're going to be teaching you. First thing we need to do is get in tune, and I'm in standard tuning, and here's my high E string. Try to tune up to this, or if you have an electronic tuner, you should be at this note, the high E. And then we have the second string, the B, the G string, the D string, the A, and that low E string. You in tune? Now, one of the questions that comes up right away is, what gauge strings are you using? Well, I'm using a set of basically light gauge strings. We're starting from a .012, and in this case, ending on a .054. Most light gauge strings end at a .053, but because of this jumbo model Martin guitar, this is my signature model guitar, I tend to use just a little heavier in the bass, but basically light gauge strings. Let's play a C chord together. And take a look at my left hand and see how I have my pinky down on the 3rd fret, the 1st string. So we have a full C chord, and in fact, sometimes you can also put your thumb. Oh, this is a little bit of a stretch. And now you're playing all 6 strings. The first tune I'd like to play for you is a tune called Corrina Corrina, which I'm sure you know of many different versions, even rock and roll versions. So here's the way I'm playing it in the key of C. What's so interesting to me is that a tune like Corrina Corrina was being played on both sides of the tracks. So you have the audio recordings of Clarence Ashley's group it's a string band, a white string band, and then you have Bo Carter from Mississippi, the way he played the tune. Quite different, but whereas my arrangement is, I would say, based very much on the Carolina Tar Heels version. And Mississippi John Hurt used to play this tune as well in the key of C as well as the key of D, and very similar to the way I'm playing it for you today. Now, one thing, I tend to use the bare fingers, the fingertips, the skin of my right hand. So when I'm playing, if you take a look at my right hand on the strings, my thumb is sort of parallel to the strings, and I'm coming down rather heavily to accent that bass. I'm playing a C chord. Now, some people use picks, you'll get a different sound. If you use just a thumb pick, some people use thumb picks as well as finger picks. I don't think that's necessary to use finger picks for this type of playing. But you really want to make sure that you're playing the guitar and the guitar isn't playing you. I keep saying that in so many different lessons. It's very important when you play a C chord, and let's say if you look at my left hand and check out my ring finger, I'm just going to be alternating that ring finger going backwards and forwards between the 5th and the 6th string. But now take a look at my right hand, and you'll see that my thumb is going 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. So feel comfortable with that. And now we're going to try changing the chord to an F chord. It's just going to be 3 chords. And we're going to play the F chord like this. Oh, I hear some groans out there. When people look at that thumb over the fingerboard, they say, oh, I can't do it. Well, actually, there's an easier way. Try doing the F chord like this, but you don't need to have your index finger barring the first 2 strings. You just have to basically have it on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. Now be careful, you don't want to play that high E string, otherwise you get it, I believe it's an F6. And now it's easier to get your thumb over on the 1st fret of the 6th string. And so when you're playing the C, you have 5, 4, 6, 4. And now the F, 6, 4, easy enough. And now go to a G7th. And likewise here, you're going to have 6, 4, and back to your C. Now, so many guitar arrangements are played in this first position. In fact, there's a joke in Nashville that most of the money being made there with the tunes are all played in the first position with chords up to the 1st to the 5th frets. So a C and an F and a G, powerful stuff. I'm just going to pick out the melody. I started off with that, Karina, and then the melody comes. Keeping that bass popping backwards and forwards. Into that F chord. Nothing too hard there. G chord. And then a hammer on a G7. And then your pinky comes to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and a C chord. Let me play it real slow. Something that I do here. You know, I could just be playing the open G string. If you do it with your thumb, you get that sound. If I did it with my index finger, I get that sound, which is slightly different. But if I play it with both my thumb and the index finger, actually like sort of pinching the string, I get a much more, it's a biting sound. I call it spitting on the guitar. And then you get into that softer sound. So listen. And then the full sound. The F chord. So not too difficult, a lovely tune to begin with. I'm not a singer, and I'm not going to try to sing these songs during this lesson, especially since you have the original recordings and sometimes different versions of them. Number 1, you can hear the melody, how it's being sung. And number 2, all the lyrics are there for you to get. Lots of different lyrics. So let's split the screen now and try this rather simple arrangement of Karina, Karina. pick up the tempo. Okay, that was Karina. Now, let's make sure we understand each other here. My approach for teaching is that if you can play the tune real slow, and I mean real slow, as slow or slower than I played it on a split screen, then you'll be in charge of playing that tune. In other words, you got it. But if you play it real fast right from the beginning, usually I find that students are bluffing and they're missing out the strong bass. This is dance music, remember that. So you want that thumb to be really hitting and establishing a real strong feel. And the melody just goes on top of that. So you have to have a strong bass and then you put the melody on it. And in fact, let's stay in this first position, key of C. Check now in the audio section and let's listen to How Long Blues by Frank Stokes. Now, Frank Stokes was a very popular, important singer in the 1920s in Memphis, Tennessee. Played a lot of tunes very similar in style to the way Mississippi John Hurt played. A lot of the tunes he played as a duet with another guitar player who's playing a flat picking style. So they get a great combination of two guitars, one finger picking and one flat picking. Check out How Long Blues, and we're going to then listen to myself playing the arrangement. I'll play it up to speed and then we'll break it down for you. What a fun tune to play. I really enjoy that. One of the questions that I get asked quite a bit is with that alternating bass, people say, well, I hear it's a little bit thudded. Well, it is. It's dampened. Now, here's the way I do it, and different guitar players have different ways of doing this. If you notice my right hand, I have my pinky on the face of the guitar, which really helps. I'm not going like this, by the way. I'm not pushing it down. I just have it resting on the face of the guitar. That gives my hand position, as you see it, and it allows my palm just to rest on top of the strings near the bridge here. So that way I can, when I play a note, I'm putting my palm literally on the strings and I'm deadening the sound. Now, why do you want that? Because of this bass, this alternating bass, it's really ringing out so much, and you're trying to play it boom, chick, so much so that if I try to kill those strings, I'm playing that bass, now I'm going to kill them. Hey, the guitar is still ringing out. So there's so much sound coming out of the instrument that we want to try to control it. So this way I can say, okay, the bass I'm going to have somewhat deadened. So I damp it, and then when I play the treble, that just rings out. So there's a nice spectrum of sound that's hitting the people that are listening to you. Plus it's sort of like a dish of food. You can just have meat and potatoes, or you can start to put different spices in that food. And dampening is one of the effects that you can use to add some spice to your playing. We're just using those same three chords, the C, the F, and the G, G7th, and it's just what I like a lot about this tune is the opening phrase. Take a look at that again. It's G7, back to the C. And those three notes really project you into the F chord. How long, how long I had. So let's take it again. F. And I do a hammer on with my pinky on my left hand. Let me play that a little slower for you. And so the melody line that you're playing is literally what you're playing on the guitar is what you would be singing. And that bass is sort of the drum player in the band that's keeping the time for you. So let's play it real, real slowly on a split screen, and let's see how slowly I can play it and you play it with me. Let's try doing it together. One more time, slowly. Let's try to pick up the tempo. One more time. Okay, now if you've been looking at that split screen carefully, I bet you noticed that on my left hand, when I was playing those chords, my hand wasn't just staying fixed down on the fingerboard. They kept sort of popping up and down in a very subtle fashion. Well, that's another form of dampening. Let me show you this. If I'm playing this bass, and now look at my left hand, you see how, I'm going to exaggerate for you. I take the pressure off the strings, and that gives the sound even a more percussive quality and a more precise percussive quality. So when I'm playing, now here, into the F, another spice. Now obviously that's exaggerating, but it just gives you another idea of something that you can add to your playing. Don't add it yet. In fact, even the dampening, don't worry about the right hand. Don't worry about that yet until you have all the coordination of the chords and the finger picking together. It's very important that, I'll repeat it again, that you're playing the guitar isn't playing you. You want to make sure that you're in complete control. Now let's get into something using first position chords, but then going a little bit beyond. A real popular ragtime tune is called Rag Mama. And we have, on the audio bonus tracks here, we have Blind Boy Fuller playing it. Now they say that Reverend Gary Davis was playing second guitar on this because they were both up in New York City recording at the same time. I don't hear Reverend Gary Davis's second guitar part. Well, it might be there, but I certainly don't hear it very clearly. But you do hear Blind Boy Fuller playing this great tune. It's a great ragtime tune. We're going to have a couple of other chords to play, thank goodness. We're going to have the C chord. We're going to have what we call a long A chord. Just check this out. We're barring with our index finger. I'm sure you know this. Pinky reaches out to catch the 5th fret of the 1st string. Then we're going to have our A7th. We're going to have a D7th. We're going to have a G7th. And back to a C. So it's going to go sort of like this. Da da, dee bop bop bop, beep doo boop bop bop, beep bop, beep doo doo doo, bop bop bop, doo doo doo. Let's do that rag mom. All right, now what I'm going to do is try to play this, and I'll start off playing in those first positions, and then I'm going to go into the danger zone, past the 5th fret. And I may show you some other chords as well. In other words, substitution chords. Instead of just playing this D7, and check my thumb, it's on the 2nd fret of the 6th string. You know, I like using that thumb as much as I can. We can also play this D7. What is that? That's just a C chord. Put your pinky down on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string and move it up, and now you have a D7th. So we could be doing that D7th. Instead of this G chord, we could be playing this position for G, which is an F position. Move it up so you have a G, but we're going to be playing the 7th. So if you take a look at this, it's basically my index finger barring the top 4 strings on the 3rd fret, and my thumb is reaching over on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, and my middle finger comes down to the 4th fret of the 3rd string. Now you might say, ay, 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 why should you be doing all that trouble to get a chord? Well, look, I have my ring finger and my pinky available in case I want to do something. I can start using that. And in fact, instead of this A7th, if I move this G7th up one, whoa, I have an A7th up here. So whereas I was going C, A7th, D7th, G7th, C, I could start going A7th up here, a D7th here, a G7th here, and a C. Let's see what I can do with it, and I'll try playing it a couple of different ways, and we'll try to rag together, Rag Mama. Okay, so let's try to have some fun with Rag Mama. The first way we can play it is just in those positions, just walking down the bass. And then we go to an A chord, and we're going to go from the A to the A7th, just keeping our alternating bass. Now we go to the D7th chord, but watch out, there's an alert here, because this is a Gary Davis lick. Take a look at my left hand. We're going to start with the D7th. Everything comes off, and you're going to pinch the 1st and the 5th string. Your trusty thumb is going to come to the 3rd fret of the 6th string with your index finger on the 1st fret of the 1st. Basically, that's a G7th chord, but for economy of movement, and then back to the D7th. So it's, and that's a little lick that Reverend Davis used, Blind Blake used. It's a good one. Now we get into the G. This is cool too. Just having your pinky come in, just a straight first position G chord. See how that pinky is sort of walking down the stairs. And then we're going to have this as the bridge. Bum, 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 bum. And then you go back into the progression. Again, you can play this all with your thumb. Gives it a nice heavy sound, or we could try to spit it. Take a look at my right hand. Hear the difference in sound, and then we get the plush thumb sound. Ah, that's not another little lick. We can throw in a little Blind Blake stumble. And you can use ba-boom. So the whole thing would be. In fact, on the audio part of the DVD, I put down Blind Blake doing Wabash Rag, which is using the same progression, but he really goes to town on this one. And also Willie Walker's South Carolina Rag. And Willie Walker was a very important guitar player in the South Carolina area. In fact, he was the one that was sort of the teacher of Reverend Gary Davis. Reverend Davis played in a string band with Willie Walker and played a lot of his instrumentals. An important name to remember, but unfortunately one who only recorded 178, so we only have 2 tunes by him. And you're going to be hearing the other tune later on in this lesson. So at this point, we have in the first position, we have some ideas. Let's go up here, see if we can do something different. We can walk up to that A7th here. That's pretty cool. Just keeping that bass alternating. And then we can go on the 7th fret and just slide back to the 5th fret and get into that D7th. So let me do that for you. And there I ended up on the A7th with my pinky. I think it's best just to do it like that. Back to the D7th. And now let's go into that G7th. Play like with the bar position. And again, our pinky that we have free to move around is playing that melody line. You could also throw in your ring finger and catch that note, the 4th fret of the 2nd string, so you would have. So you sort of get an augmented sound. And right back into the C. Now to the G. let's see, you can go to this A, and now instead of going to the first position, D7th, you can go to the, let's call this the second position, D7th. Or you could go, this is another position for a D7th, and we'll just need to have the top two strings so you can play them with your index and middle. So you could go, a lot of choices here. And have your pinky pull off, ring finger pull off, and then back into the G7th. So many choices. What's another G7th? Here's one. You know how you had this D7th? Let's take a look on my left hand. If we move this all the way up here, it's going to be a G7th, but we don't really have an alternating bass possibility there, so we play it like this. So if you look at my pinky and my ring finger, my middle finger, they're playing the same D7th fingering, but my index finger comes out to the 5th fret of the 4th string. So let's see if I can put that in a context. I go up here. I love this sound. Now that G7th. And what's that? That's just going to be a long A, but we bring it up here, so we have a long C. Or if this is the note, that's your C note, way up the fingerboard, if we play an F fingering, we have a C chord there. So I could have gone, and then I could have moved it back to the A chord. Just so many possibilities here. So what I'd like you to do is sort of go over what I've just been talking about. I'm going to split the screen, and I'll try to do quite a few of the possibilities as slowly as possible. And again, remember, Rag Mama Rag is a rag. You're going to have people dancing for this, so you really want that bass to be strong. I'll play it slow, and let's see what different fingerings and different chord positions we can use. Here we go. Well, how we do? And I hope you have everything down, that you feel comfortable with what the 3 tunes we've had so far. I would bet that the hardest thing for you to come to grips with is that you can play a C chord here, you can play a C chord here, you can play a C chord here, and that you feel free that you can change positions. Meaning that if you have an arrangement, and if we're going with an A chord here, well, you could say, hey, I've learned that from the tablature, but it's not a rigid. The music isn't rigid. It isn't that I have to do that all the time. Hey, I could try to go up here and do this A chord. Or I could do this A7th chord. I mean, you can find different chords up and down the neck, and that will allow you to try to arrange a tune and give variations to the tune. Okay, now let's see what we're going to do next. Let's take Rag Mama and go one step further with another Blind Boy Fuller tune. Well, actually, it was a tune that was made so popular by so many blues musicians as well as folk musicians. We're going to take a tune called Piccolo Rag, and we're going to, I'll give you the chords, and you probably will recognize this immediately. So it's going to be ba 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 do do, same type of feeling, ba beep beep ba boom. And here we're adding an E7th, boo ba boo ba ba, do 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 do. And now we have a C chord and then a C7 and an F top a do do and an A flat 7. Gotta stop doing what you're doing to me, mama. If you don't, you're gonna run me wild. You gotta stop. So that chord progression is one that's not too hard. It's just gonna be a C, E7th. Check out how I'm doing the E7th. Look at my left hand. I'm just going to be having my middle finger and index finger playing those strings, 2nd fret of the 5th, 1st fret of the 3rd, and then my pinky comes down to the 3rd fret of the 2nd. You notice that my ring finger is available, and that's because sometimes we would, not for this tune, but we would use that by playing the 2nd fret of the 1st string, cool chord. Also, if you take a look at my middle finger, where I'm only playing, now with the E7th chord, I'm playing it like that, sometimes I'll just buckle it down, and this way I'm also fretting the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Another good position to try to come to grips with. So we had the C, E7th, the A, A7th, D7th, G7th, C. And then when you have that bridge, da, ba, 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 that's a C chord, C7th, F and A flat, but you could have played a C up here, a C7th there. Hey, what is that? Well, if I was pretending my index finger was a capo and I played a deep G position, it would be like this. Taking off my ring finger and middle finger, I just have that, and I bring my index finger down, and we have that C chord. And by putting my ring finger there, it becomes a C7. Move it back one, and put my middle finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, and we have an F chord. Move this up, and what do we have? We have an A flat 7th, which is the same thing as, okay, so that gives you a nice variation. And we're going to play some games with this little part. Sometimes we're going to play it this way. We're going to learn a lot of different ways how we can play that, and also how to do single string runs against that. But first, let me play you the way I play Piccolo Rag, and here we go. Okay, we have a lot of stuff to teach you now, and a lot of stuff for you to try to come to grips with and master. And let's do it as slowly as possible and start at the beginning. The first part, pretty simple. Let's just do this with a straight alternating bass. We have the C, that E7, A and A7, D7, easy enough. This is easy enough. And we had that lick already. And then we have the C chord, C7th chord, F. Now this is an A flat 7th, just your A flat, your A7th, move it back one to be a flat, A flat. Yes, and your thumb comes over it. Sometimes we're going to be using that, sometimes we're not, but I like you to try to feel comfortable playing that position. And then back. D7th. Now, just as we discussed in Rag Mama, when you're going here and you get to the D7th, you could go to this D7th. So you can start to substitute some of the chord positions that you should be able to experiment on your own and have some fun with it. But let's take a look at that, the C, the C7th, F, A flat 7th, and some different ideas that we can try to do here. Now, one of them is a Gary Davis type of lick that's probably the only pattern picking I know. Pattern meaning that the right hand does a certain thing all the time, and you can change the chords that you're playing on the left hand, but you keep that rhythmic feel with your right hand. Let me explain that a little clearer. Play a C chord. We just have the first position C chord. Now, Reverend Davis does this type of lick. If you take a look at my right hand, and I'm just going to be using my thumb and my index finger. He does thumb, index, thumb, thumb, index, index, thumb. So you get a very specific. Try that real slowly. Okay, now you can play around with that. In that, if I'm playing, start with the 5th string, and I end on the 4th string, well, I could start on the 4th string and end on the 5th string. I can start on the 3rd string. As long as I keep that thumb, index, thumb, thumb, that's weird, index, index, thumb. Now, some people try to do it with their index and the middle finger. You don't get the same bounce. And especially if you try to dampen a little bit with your left hand, you remember it, take a look at my fingering, and I'm lifting up the pressure. You really get a So in that little 4 chords, we can go C, C7, F. Now in this F chord, you're going to have to play that full F chord, meaning that you will have to be playing with your index finger barring the top 1st fret of the 1st string. And then that A flat 7. Here I played that low bass. And then you're back into the C chord. So the riff would go like this. C7, F chord, A flat 7, and back into. Okay, let's do some additional type of thinking on that little phrase. We could play the C chord, but now check this one out. Look at my left hand. I'm going to put my pinky down on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. My ring finger is going to go to the 3rd fret of the 3rd string. So that's a C7th. And your thumb reaches out and gets the 3rd fret of the 6th string. And actually, the way Reverend Davis would play this, this is one of his monster chords. He also, with his thumb, you can see how it's getting so red there, it's stretched out over, it even hurts me, he's playing the 3rd fret of the 5th string. You don't have to get that 5th string if it's a little bit difficult. All we need is to get the 6th string and we get the same right hand lick. So putting it all together now, we have C, and then that monster C 7th chord, the F chord. Now instead of doing this A flat 7th, you could do a diminished. And a diminished chord is just like your A flat 7th, but put your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and diminished chords are great because every time you go up 3 frets, it's the same chord. So you can, sounds like you know the fingerboard when you do that, but basically you're just playing the same chord and then back. So what we did there, just to go over it again, and the C 7th with the riff, with the Gary Davis pattern, and then diminished. And I tend to keep this part almost always the same, play the same way, except maybe substituting a chord or two. And as I said before, instead of this D7th, I might play this D7th. Let's go back again now to this C, C7th, F, A flat 7th part. We can throw in a single string run. Take a look at this. I guess it would be the left hand. We want to see what happens. We slide up on the bar 2nd to the bar of the 5th, pinching that, and we do pinch, 3rd string, 4th string bass, and that's a little bit different than the way I played it in the performance section. Let's take a look at it. I'm getting these notes, and this is a Gary Davis type of riff. In fact, he taught me this. Look at my right hand would be a good idea, because check this out. Index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb. So what you have to learn how to do here is by playing with your alternating with the thumb and index finger. Again. And then you can go into that rhythmic pattern lick, or you could play the diminishes. Or you could have gone a single string run and then stop it, the pattern lick, and then a diminished. A lot of choices for you there. All right. And sometimes I'll end these songs in C with, I think you've heard that already, and all that is, you can either use your middle finger, your ring finger, or your pinky. I tend to use my pinky there, and if you see that, and my thumb is catching the 3rd fret of the 6th string, you're pinching the 1st, 2nd, and 6th string, move it back down 1, and you're playing now the 1st, 2nd, and 5th string again, and then you're playing a G7th chord into the C. So the bass is going, I fingered it differently that time. I like using my pinky because when you get to the G7, it's comfortable. Now what I'd like to try to do is to split the screen. I'll try to play it slowly. I'll try to put as many of those variations I've just showed you. I guess there was one I didn't show you, which I sort of hinted at when I introduced the tune. We have the C. So in the context, we could have, instead of doing, we could have gone. many different ways to play this. So I'll split the screen, and what we've done also with the tab music, we've written out all the ways I'm playing it on the split screen. So hopefully you'll be able to get as many different licks that you can learn, and then you can just juxtapose them as you wish. Just turn them around, put them in different orders, and make it your tune. So here's the split screen. Let's try it real slow. Well, enough of the key of C. We had 4 tunes in it, and with a lot of different right hand and left hand technique. And I hope you're feeling comfortable with it, but let's switch over now to the key of E. All right, the key of E, well, we know the first position E chord, no problem. For the A chord, meaning that we're playing a blues, we're going to have an E, an A, and a B seventh. Here's an A seventh, one way of playing it, which we're going to be using in this next tune. A real simple way, just with your middle and ring fingers. And you notice that sort of keeps our index and pinky available, so we can put those down if we need it, leading back to an E chord, a B seventh chord. And usually when I play a blues in E, I tend not to put down the pinky, and I'm not playing that first string, so I'm just as an experiment, take off that index finger, and you have that chord. We're going to get to that. We're going to see how we can fit in that type of chord with a blues in E. And then back to the E. Now this is a version of Betty and Dupree. I first heard this played by Willie Walker on the old 1920s recording, and then it became very popular by Josh White and Brownie McGhee. And I was looking for the lyrics, and I went on Google, on the internet, and I was a little bit shocked because right away the first hits, the first 20 hits, were all about Peter, Paul, and Mary's version of this tune, Betty and Dupree, which sort of shocked me because I relate to this as an old folk blues tune. Well, let me play you the way I've arranged it. Listen to Willie Walker's version on the audio tracks. It's a beautiful, beautiful rendition. My version is sort of mine. It's sort of taking the feel, hopefully, of Willie Walker, but more the playing in the key of E, which is the way that Brownie McGhee had played it. So here's the way I'm doing it. Okay, so that's a real folk blues arrangement of Betty and Dupree. And we're out of that world of the boom chick, boom chick, boom chick. We're into a real bluesy type of feel. And let me just show you the basic riff that keeps appearing throughout this arrangement. Take a look at my left hand. We're going to be playing that E chord, but we're going to be hammering on on the index finger on the first fret of the third string. I'll take off the other fingers just so you see that. And it just sort of goes backwards and forwards. So you get a nice feel. And this is an A position. Take a look just with your index and your ring finger. So you're basically going just back. And now let's take a look at my right hand and see what we're doing. And that's an important note. This note. So your index finger is actually coming up above the Mason border line of the third and fourth strings, and it's hitting the fourth string. And I'm dampening, and even that by itself is a really lovely feel. Now let's talk a little bit just about that riff, because forgetting Betty and Dupree, you could just take that riff and try to just play a straight blues. And you could go from here and then bring it up to this position with your ring finger and middle finger. You got that? And then go back to that A. So you have okay, so let's get back into the arrangement though. We start off literally playing the melody. Betty told Dupree. So it's, and you do have an alternating bass there, but you don't have that feel, the John Hurt type of feel. Now we slide in with that A7, just with our middle and the ring finger, picking out the melody line. And then we add that index finger onto the first fret of the fifth string, leading in back to the E chord. So it's Betty told Dupree. And I have a little stumble bass there, a la Blind Blake. I want a diamond ring. And now we go. This is quite different from the way a Delta blues musician would play a blues. And what are we doing here? This time I'm going into the A7th with my index middle finger, and there's some rhyme and reason to this, because the position that follows right after that is this sort of semi-D position with our ring finger and our middle finger. So it's, and then back, and we're going to slide back and end up in this A position. So let's try it real slowly. And with the bass. Another stumble. I want a diamond ring. So this is, that position here is basically around this F fingering of an A chord, but we just want to use the second and third string, and we come down with our ring finger and pinky. That's a nice sound, but we're just getting the melody back to the second fret of the second and third string, and we're back into the E chord. So we have here, told Dupree, I want a diamond ring. So let's do up until there. Now the riff. Into the A. Keep the bass. Into the riff. Now a B7th chord. Now you can just do that B7th chord, or you can also lift up your middle finger so it catches the second fret of the sixth string, or you could also go putting your pinky down on the third fret of the second string. So we have, and then, oh, I like that lick. This is Rob from Mance Lipscomb. We just play the 4th fret of the 6th string, open A. So we're going to have 2nd fret of the 3rd string, 1st and then 2nd fret of the 2nd string. And that's lovely. The index and middle finger you're hammering on. So it's, and I'm keeping an alternating bass going during that. And back into our riff. Now before I was talking about just playing a straight blues, and you could go now when you're going to go to the A, just a straight blues. Okay, this is just that A chord and that D position, but I'm playing it now in a different fingering because I want to get my ring finger and pinky coming down to the 5th frets of the 2nd and 4th string. And you can also do a little hammer on there. So putting those together, I got the finger picking blues. Hey mama, my fingers are starting to ache. Yeah. Back. And now we can go into that B7. And that nice lick. And then the end tag. And that end tag is just taking a D7, sliding it all the way up. Take a look at my left hand now. We're going to slide it up, bring it back down, but take off your ring finger. Put back the ring finger when you slide it down another one, and you have an E. So it's, and into a B7. Try it again. Now that end phrase, that's one way of doing it. You can also go, I mean, there's millions of different end phrases. This is a lovely one, turn around. Awkward position with your ring finger, middle finger. Middle finger goes back one. You're almost playing a C chord, but your middle finger's coming down and catching the 2nd fret of the 1st string, hammering on, and then playing it open. So it's, and here we go. Let's see what we have. That bass going into the B7, turn around. Now what's interesting about this arrangement is that we're using an alternating bass in a couple of phrases, but you don't really, it's not pronounced. And then we're just playing the melody. We have different textures going on in this tune. Then we have just strumming, and then really what I would call this an intricate little lead line. And put it all together, and hopefully the arrangement is an interesting arrangement. So we have Betty and Dupree, which I'll play on the split screen, but remember that we also just spoke about just playing a straight blues with this type of riff. So keep that in back of your mind and see if you can, perhaps if you're playing with a friend of yours who plays electric guitar and he wants to go, you can give them a chance to do that, because you can play this and you can go. So they can get their fingers all up and down the fingerboard, but you can keep a good, steady, rhythmic backbeat there. Okay, so let's split the screen and get into Betty and Dupree. Up to tempo. Okay, so this is the first part of this lesson. We have another DVD to delve into with a lot of different tunes and different tunings, different techniques, right and left hand. If you have any questions, I do have a terrible habit of always answering my email, and that's Stefan, S-T-E-F-A-N, @gtrvideos.com. You can just write emails if you don't have a computer, and which would be a surprise to me because nowadays almost everyone has one. Well, you can always write me a letter at P.O. Box 802 in Sparta, S-P-A-R-T-A, New Jersey, 07871. Now let me end with the tune that we're going to begin with in our next DVD. This is sort of a bluesy a la Mississippi John Hurt. It's going to be pretty simple, but I'm going to throw in the next lesson a big surprise at you. So meanwhile, come have a listen to this and see what it sounds like, and here we go.